Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at War update. And as we're set to deliberate the latest developments here in Israel, throughout the region and beyond, with chief focus today, of course, on the cessation of hostilities vis-a-vis the Lebanese theater, the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, efforts by the Islamic Republic of Iran to smuggle weaponry through Jordan into Judea and Samaria, and last but not least, of course, the broader scheme of things. Where are we standing vis-a-vis the Islamic Republic of Iran in particular, as well as the Houthis in Yemen? But before all that, it's always important to remember that 418 days ago, on October 7th of last year, the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates in the Gaza Strip launched an onslaught on southern Israel, declaring war by perpetrating a massacre, murdering some 1,200 mostly civilians, wounding over 4,800 others, and kidnapping some 250 people, including elderly, men, women, children, and infants. 101 of them remain in Hamas captivity to date. The subsequent day, on October 8th of last year, Iran essentially joined the war when it greenlighted its proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, to launch cross-border attacks into Israel. Since then, over 13,000 munitions have been launched from Lebanese territory towards Israel, and not by Hezbollah alone. Additional Iranian proxies have launched additional munitions from Syria, from Iraq, from Yemen, including Iran proper. Now let's turn to central Israel, where we're joined by the commander of the Israeli Air Force Task Force for Air and Missile Defense, namely Brigadier General in Reserve, Doron Gavish. It's good to see you, General. What can you tell us about this cessation of hostilities? It started at 4 a.m. early this morning with the expectation for the next 60 days to have various procedures being implemented in order to further finalize this outline. Is it viable in a situation where the Islamic Republic of Iran is, via its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah, still eager to entrench itself along the borderline?
Well, Jonathan, this is really the question. What would be the real implementation of this agreement? And this would be the key point of where are we going to? For sure, in the northern border, although we all believe that this agreement would have implications also in other areas. And so, as you said, in the next 60 days, we have to see the deployment of the Lebanese force with the support of the US or French and others. And this would be, of course, one of the key points of this agreement, but also the behavior of the Iranians toward Hezbollah. Are they going to continue and to push weapons into Lebanon? This is a big question. And of course, also by this agreement, Israel is still able to do whatever is necessary out of the soil of Lebanon in order to stop those weaponry shipments by Iran. We have to remember that Syria, although they are not part of this agreement, they also have a kind of a part, I would say they are playing a part in this role. Are they going to stop the Iranians in a war, in a way? Because they don't want to be continuously attacked? Well, there is a lot of open questions which are relevant to the northern border. From the Israeli point of view, we have to remember, as we said, it is really only the beginning. The Israeli, the civilians are not back to their hometowns. It will take a while. This is the main question, and this is the main effort, and this is the goal with regards to the north, which is bringing back the civilians safely to the house, and this would be the big question because this is what we want again. I would also add that we have to remember that this war started in the south, and it would probably would have to end in the south, in the Gaza Strip. We still didn't bring back the hostages, 101, which are still there. So there is a way to go, and obviously the Iranian arena. I think that this is also a big question how the Iranians are going to behave. They are going to continue to launch attacks toward Israel through their proxies, or are they going to take another path? For sure, the upcoming Trump administration would be one of their highest considerations. So a lot of questions to be answered. But this is for sure interesting. You know that we are in this point in the north part of Israel, and I really hope, and I would like to be optimistic, and that we will see our civilians back to their town, and that the northern part of Israel would flourish again.
God willing, as soon as possible. Let's now turn to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by retired Brigadier General, no other than Mark Kimmett, formerly an Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs. It's great to see you, General. I'd like to hear your take on this whole ordeal. Naturally, the Biden administration has been quite active in trying to reach such a cessation of hostility for over a year now, and they have failed to do so time and again, with Hezbollah saying quite boldly that they would never back down from a hostile front unless the war in Gaza ends, unless Israel capitulates there. What changed?
Well, I don't think it had anything to do with Washington. I think it had everything to do with that individual soldier on the ground and that pilot inside the airplane. It is clear that Hezbollah has taken a military defeat unlike it has ever taken before. The fact that it has separated its demands of peace in Gaza before peace in Lebanon, along with the work that has been done eviscerating the top three levels of leadership in Hezbollah, fundamentally, I think the conditions were not right because it was the diplomatic environment, but because it was a military environment. It's clear Hezbollah knew that they were going to lose their vaunted status inside of Lebanon. They knew they were losing their military capability. And I think even their masters in Tehran just said, hey, give it a rest. We'll try to do this another time in the future. I do appreciate what the Biden administration has done, but it certainly does have the aroma of legacy more than it has a view, in my mind, of good, solid diplomacy.
Indeed. Strong words. Also joining us from northern Israel is Major General in Reserve Gilshon Cohen, formerly the commander of the Israeli Defense Colleges, as well as an Army Corps commander. It's good to see you, General. Strong words coming out of
Good to see you.
Washington. It's great to see as well. General Kimmett explicitly noted this is a military victory that has pressured Hezbollah into a very critical decision. Are they continuing to fight to the point of diminished significance within the Lebanese state, where they would then be confronted by domestic forces in order to diminish their capabilities even further? Or are they going to stop and live to fight another day? Why would Israel succumb to this? Of course, we heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking about three key reasons, namely the angle of the slowing of munitions entering into Israel's weapons caches for the purpose of waging its war from the United States and elsewhere. The decision, of course, also to highlight the decoupling of the Gaza theater from the Lebanese theater. And last but not least, of course, the fact that the troops, they need a little bit of a refreshment. The IDF has been waging war for over 200 days. For a lot of reserve troops, it's not easy to do so. Of course, waging war about more than 400 days, but the reserve troops have been operational for roughly 200 days each, and that is quite a significant toll.
Actually, it is easy to speak from Tel Aviv about the condition within them the soldiers are fighting. I'm here now in the north, the winter is really here very expressively. There is snow in the Hermon mountain. Not easy at all to serve as a soldier in such conditions. In both sides, it is not easy. In the last 3 days, the IDF Air Force succeeded to attack a lot of targets, not only in Dahya, Beirut, but also in Kar, the Lebanese valley in the northeast of Lebanon. And the outcome of this attack is very important. It means that Hezbollah really realized that they have an immediate interest to stop the war before they are becoming just minority without power to keep their hegemony in Lebanon. If we are speaking about Israel, what is the Israeli interest? The main interest is not military one. The main Israeli interest is just directed to the international community to emphasize that we are on the same page with France and United States, taking risks in order to bring ceasefire to the area. And if something will just bring this agreement to be collapsed, it will be very known to each one that Israel accepted that agreement, and Israel is really in a kind of partnership with the other states, Western states, in order to create a kind of stability to the region. The war could every day be reopened. Israel will try not to do that, but it is quite in Israeli hands to keep the status quo that was achieved, that Hezbollah will not be re-equipped and resettled southern to Litani across the Israeli border.
Indeed. Well, General Kavish, when we're looking at the Syrian theater, which is, of course, the territorial landmass from which Iran has to transfer its weaponry in order to reach its designation in Lebanon, we're seeing the Israeli Air Force, according to various reports, launching concrete and deliberate strikes against significant munition caches, both incoming from the Islamic Republic of Iran as well as the ones that are transferred through the Al Bukamal crossing from Iraq into Syria. Are we expected to see an intensification of this in the near future to once again enforce the cessation of hostilities? And just for the record, there have been already exchanges of fire in order to distance various Hezbollah operatives from seeking to return to southern Israel. And this is a policy that Jerusalem is intending to enforce with full force.
Well, indeed, Jonathan, I think that we all have learned from the 7th of October that we're not anymore in a position to allow our enemies to arm themselves, to try to contain the situation. Well, we're not there. We understand now that if there would be any activity or any activities that they would take, we would be intolerant with regards to it at all. Not toward the Hezbollah, not toward the Syrians or the Iranians. This is something that Israel stated, and this is something that Israel is prepared to do. And this is why it is so important that part of this agreement is that Israel would keep its surveillance efforts over Lebanon. And we are going to be very, I think, we would take it very strongly. We're not going to let it happen again. This is really one of the main lessons learned from the 7th of October. The IDF is determined. This is for sure. But I think also our political leadership is also determined not to contain anymore the situation as it was before. We have to remember that the leaders in the northern part of Israel, the leaders of the towns, the mayors, this is exactly what they are expecting before they would go back, to make sure that everything is being enforced in a very tight and strongly way. And this is why I mentioned before that I really think that what would happen in Syria, even more than in Lebanon, would be an indication for the future. What would be the behavior of the Syrians, the Iranians, and the Hezbollah? Are they going to try to continue with what they've done, or are we going to see a change or a shift there? Big question. The other thing that I want to mention is that I fully agree with my colleague at Past Commander General Gershon Cohen that France being part of this agreement, it is even interesting because we had some disagreement with them, and now that they would be exposed to the intelligence, they would be exposed to what is happening in the ground, they would have to be the ones that would enforce this agreement. So I think that they would have to face this challenge without being sitting in the bench as they did in the past. So this is, I think, for the North. And once again, we're not done yet. And the goals of this war started in the south part of Israel and must be ended in the south part of Israel. And of course, Iran, which I think that this would be, of course, the strategic challenge for the future. And I hope that this would be something that we would all would be super, I would say, focus on this.
And of course, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu already mentioned that the focus will be on the Iranian file to ensure that it does not acquire nuclear weapon capabilities at the time that, quite frankly, this is its final card or the wrap out of the hat, so to speak. But General Kimmett, when we're talking about breaches of such a complex and heavily desired to success deal, which is currently being enforced in Lebanon, are the current outgoing administration in Washington, as well as the French leadership in Paris, eager to see it enforced also at the expense of a collapse? Since naturally there are various diplomatic considerations and interests attached to this. And if we are also to speak about the smuggling, the IDF announced earlier today that rockets, mortars, and Claymore explosives were uncovered in a large smuggling network by the Iranian intelligence Division 4000 that were smuggled through Jordanian territory into the Jordan Valley on the western bank of the Jordan River. What is this to be within the broader scheme of things? Is this an indication that the Iranians are still resolved to continue with their so-called ring of fire of various proxies, as was dictated by Qasem Soleimani and his strategy for the region?
Well, I think I want to go back to the first point you were trying to make. Look, this is an agreement that's built on the flimsiest of foundations. Any agreement requires compliance, verification, and enforcement. And the verification and the compliance will be done by the Lebanese Armed Forces and UNIFIL. Pretty shaky premise right there. Enforcement, there is no enforcement mechanism for this. one of the reasons the LAF never wanted to be in this 1701 arrangement is because they didn't want to have to find themselves firing on fellow Lebanese in Hezbollah. That's not only a military concern, but it's a political concern because that they have had their experience with civil war. And one can imagine that a large-scale operation by the LAF against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon would certainly inflame that situation again. So I don't have a lot of hope for this agreement. While it may look good on paper, while it may allow the leaders to get in front of microphones and declare victory, it's the foundations of a lack of verification and an unwillingness to enforce tells me that this, if it is successful, I will be the first one to eat my hat.
And with regard to the smuggling of weaponry, where do the Iranians stand on this?
I think the Iranians are probably just taking a good deep breath and a good pause. I don't think, to your point about the ring of fire, I don't think they for a minute have changed their policy. They will probably change their tactics and perhaps put a little more to the Houthis and perhaps a little more to the Hashid, turn up the heat in those areas, perhaps turn down the heat with Hezbollah for a little while. But I would say that ring of fire will continue. It'll just have different temperatures in different locations.
Understood. General Cohen, when we're looking at the Eastern front, we heard Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz speaking about deep concerns of the establishment of additional terror elements within the Judea and Samaria regions, also, of course, at a time when we're seeing the Houthis in Yemen, as well as Hashd al-Shaabi in Iraq, declaring quite openly, we're not stopping. A cessation of hostility might be right for Lebanon, but it's not right for us.
Yes, there is a serious reasons to be in anxiety because the Iranian, who at the moment they will realize that the front in Lebanon is already beyond the whole plan to demolish Israel right now. They are trying to exploit other fronts, and we spoke about that in our last meeting regarding Jordan and the future of Jordan.
Correct.
Therefore, it really must create anxiety. And what they are trying to do in Judea and Samaria is to equip them and to bring them to be a new risk to the stability of Israel, and just to keep the momentum of an open-ended warfare. Actually, that's the situation they are dreaming to push Israel to it, never to be under tranquility. Therefore, they need to find every time a new potential for a new front. This is really a source for a lot of anxieties. And I wish IDF did quite well in the last months in Judea and Samaria. But the main problem in Judea and Samaria is that IDF acting with a legitimation under debate regarding the approaches of all over the Western states and other states. So to combine together the legitimation and necessity to struggle, and that struggle taking place among the civilians, this is really a new challenge.
Of course, come January 20th, I think the international fora will look very different. when we're talking about at least Israel's various theaters of active warfare. But we have 1 minute left for all of you. So, in one sentence, what do we expect or what should we focus on within the whole scheme of things? General Gavish, we'll start with you.
Well, I would like to echo what was said by our colleague just before General Kimmett. This is a military victory. This is for sure. We have to be humble, but I think that the military victory allowed us to be in this next point, and we see where it goes. And the question, of course, are the goals of this war. And as I mentioned, bringing back the hostages in the south.
General Kimmett?
I'm looking forward to reading the rules of engagement of both UNIFIL and the Lebanese armed forces. If their only rules of engagement is for self-defense and they're not allowed to take a more robust activity to enforce the agreements, then Hezbollah will re-infiltrate without any worry about opposition from either the LAF or UNIFIL. So let's take a look at the rules of engagement will indicate the seriousness of the mission for those that are meant to verify and enforce the agreement.
General Cohen?
For most of Israelis, absolutely. We are expecting to find a real end to the war in Lebanon. Saying that doesn't mean that the IDF is free from responsibility. It means that now there is a new challenge. IDF must adapt itself to the new challenge and to find new planning for the possibility of that agreement to collapse somehow.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I'd like to immediately thank General Cohen, General Kimmett, and General Gavish for all of your insights. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next update from here in Jerusalem, wishing you a good day. Israel has launched operations
on Vladimir Putin.
helping Iran develop. We have logic, we have rationale, we understand how the system operates.